Hi guys! I have a very special surprise to you today. It's totally different than from the last episodes, we've done. So I have with me a very, very special friend of mine and quite an opinion leader in the area of human rights. So we're here today and we're going to do an interview on her. Her name is Firestone and she has started the Firestone organization. So she's going to tell you a little bit more about it. Hi, Ellen.
Hi, Marina. Thanks for having me.
So guys, this is quite off the cuff. We are driving today. We're in the middle of traffic. We're trying to arrive to the beach Saturday. So we decided, let's go out. So here we are. So I'm going to start with the first question. What's one thing you wish you would have known before you began your career?
Well, ever since I was a little kid, I felt like I had a purpose. But I had no idea or no way to figure out what that was. And, I wish before I began that I would have had it maybe planned out a little more or, done a little bit more reflection or kind of research into what that might be. That would be better aligned with all, my personality, my talents and abilities.
That makes total sense. Yeah, I can think with that. All right. Next question. What is your biggest failure and what did you learn from it? If there's any failure, any bumps on the road or any things that you wish it would have gone smoother.
Okay. Well, I think back to, different jobs and positions I've had. And, early on I was in a large corporation and for a long, long time I did not feel fulfilled at all, but I kept going and going. And then I ended up spending decades there. And so I guess if it was a failure that I stayed too long or again, I didn't do the reflection on what would make me happy, what would be more fulfilling and better aligned with my own goals and purposes.
That's freaking beautiful. That is so beautiful. Guys, we're talking here about basic purpose. That is the fire that drives you in life. And Ellen is quite an example about this. She has lived her life based on her basic purpose, and you'll listen a little bit more about it. All right, next question. What advice would you give to someone trying to pursue a career similar to yours?
Well, my career has been mostly in the business world. And again, my undergrad degree was in accounting, which actually was a very good background to have because it fits any industry, profit, for-profit, nonprofit. So in that regard, it's a good, basic foundation that could get you into really any area. And then I think once you really find that industry or even if it's a nonprofit, then you can take off from there. Maybe get out, you might be leaving the accounting area and going into marketing or more dissemination kind of work. But so I do think that background was fine. For me, wasn't totally fulfilling, but it was good in the way that it's needed across all industries. Did I answer your question?
Yeah,
I'm not even sure.
Yeah, that's totally right. She has so many, she has a long path of education. She has so many certs, you won't even believe it, credentials. She is very simple person, but yeah, you did a BA on accounting. Then what else did you do after that?
After I finished my accounting degree, then I did an MBA, a master's in business. And then it was, I think at that point in my life when I thought, now I'm going to figure out what I really want to do. And I pursued a degree with another master's degree in transpersonal studies. And
what does that mean?
That's just the study of health and human potential. Trans meaning beyond the personal. It was a lot of courses on religion and spirituality, so it was kind of an interesting twist on business, but obviously we are body, mind and spirit, so pretty much aligned to anything, like whether it was business or medicine or education. Very, very interesting. And I remember a course where you looked at certain parts of your life when like almost these magical things happened, and then what decisions you made at that point. So anyway, it was very interesting. And I think from there, it led me into finding more of a purpose line, because, you looked at what are the things in life that really made your heart sing? When were you most alive? And eventually, I ended up on this path of human rights education, which again, I don't think many years ago I would have even picked as something. So it was really following the leads, and, people saying you need to talk to this person or meet that person. And every time I would just follow it and say, okay, they're telling me, talk to this guy in Philadelphia. So I'd set up a meeting, and then he'd say, oh, this one in particular, I remember, he's like, oh, I think you should speak at the United Nations. And I mean, this is when I'm really, really early in this whole human rights thing. And all of a sudden, months later, I'm speaking at the UN to a UN teachers conference on human rights. So it's the thing that I think was really key was never saying, yeah, I'm not going to follow that lead, or I'm not going to do that. Just always like being open and seeing where it would take you. And it like really makes life more of an adventure, more fun, and, kind of, more spiritual. It's more of a spiritual path and staying on your real purpose.
This is amazing. You're making me think about new questions I want to know about you. All right. So here we go with the next question. Who are the 3 people who have been most influential to you in your life?
Wow. 3. Let's see. Well, definitely my parents, because they, I guess I don't think I realized till even way later in life how lucky I was. Because, I had a very nice, safe, childhood, and lots of great friends, and I realized too, lots of fun. And so it created this, it was just a really, really excellent foundation. And that continues today. I have a great relationship with my mom and dad. And then when you said 3, I thought, oh my gosh, my son as well. Like, it was because of him that I even got on this path of human rights. He was the one invited to this human rights summit at UCLA, and he just looks at me and says, I'll go if you go. And so it was like these people who were kind of really open to my purpose and kind of helping me without me even knowing it. Let's see.
Wow.
Yeah, and 3, I think 3 is a lot of people, because I have so many great friends. It's a wealth. I feel rich in friendships and wonderful relationships like you.
I love you. So let me ask you something, because I know she has really, really amazing terminals around her. What about Ella?
Oh, of course, yes, Ella.
Tell us a little bit about her, and who is she?
Okay, so Ella Torrey she was public information officer to Eleanor Roosevelt, and worked with Eleanor Roosevelt at the U.S. mission to the United Nations. And I met Ella at the United Nations at an event that we were both speaking at. Obviously, she was the keynote speaker. I was, guest speaker as well. And we became really good friends. And she was such an inspiration to me, because at the time I met her, I think she was in her late 80s. And then we stayed connected. And even, as late, I think she was 93, she did a podcast interview with me. And in addition to, all the work she did when she was younger, she maintained that purpose throughout her entire life into her 90s. And I was like, wow, like that, there's lots of work to do, and you can keep going as long as you want.
That's fantastic. Guys, one thing that I've learned about Ellen and about her stories and her adventures, because she has created a lot of goodness and change in the world, believe it or not, through what she's doing through her purpose, is that you're never too late to follow your purpose. It doesn't matter. And that example is of Ella. She was 93 years old. I heard a podcast with her, And later on, you'll have availability to the podcast because Ellen will tell us where to find it. But her voice, you'll think she's a 60-year-old person, and her passion, her work, you're never late to follow what makes your heart sing. And at the end of the day, you're as valuable as you can help others. So that's why it's so important that not just going to a 9-to-5 job and get a paycheck. It's just like really what makes your heart sing, what makes that life of you special. How can you make it or convert it into a masterpiece? But okay, we'll continue with the questions. All right, so next question. What is one myth about your industry or profession that you want to debunk, meaning reduce reputation? Is there anything? You can choose any area, either corporate or you can choose human rights or any area you would like to talk about.
I think when you first asked the question, I think something very interesting to me still to this day, even though I've been teaching about human rights and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights for over a decade, is that many people, most people still do not even know the document exists. So while some of the listeners, they may be interested in this area and they've known about it for a long time, most people don't even know we have human rights. They don't know there's 30 of them, and that, they also think, well, you're saying there's human rights, but we really don't have them. No, we do have them. They're ours just by the fact of being born. However, yeah, there's human rights violations happening all around the world. And really, it's up to each of us to make sure that these human rights are adhered to and that we protect them for ourselves and others. We could think, oh, it's the government's job or it's the corporation's job or it's somebody else's job, but they're human rights. They belong to everybody, and it's all of our responsibility to make sure that we all have them. And if we did that, man, this world would look a little bit different than it does now. And, we would have that fair and free world that I think most of us want.
That's amazing. I have to tell you, she's one of my very, very dear friends, and I admire her path. I was part of when she started it, and she started giving, just enlighten people, giving DVDs about human rights. It started like sparkling a fire within people. All of a sudden, she was giving talks in schools. Then later on, she was giving talks and talking in the United Nations and become part of certain boards there. So as I tell you, she is very simple. She doesn't talk much about herself, but she has quite of a trajectory, and a career on really helping humanity in very, very different ways and she does it on her quote unquote free time. She has a job like we all need to produce, to get paid our living expenses, but she does that, and she doesn't close her eyes to just follow her purpose and really create a better world. At the end of the day, what does make a difference for us passing this land or this life? So next question. If you were in my shoes, what questions will you have asked yourself that I didn't?
Let's see. What types of organizations that I found to have an impact on the world or that are out there helping big. Because one thing I failed to mention was when I first started it was because I came across this DVD that was put together by Youth for Human Rights. And it was, at the time, just 30 public service announcements with visual presentations of each of the human rights. And it made it so easy to understand. I think if I had just read the document, I would have been like, oh, that's nice. But, because I saw this video, and it really, really had a huge impact on me. And I've seen it many times since, because I use it when I do educate or do some, workshops, and it still has that same impact. It is so well put together. And then after they did the PSAs, they also did this Story of Human Rights. It's a very short film on the history of human rights. And, it's, again, just a fabulous documentary that gives you a really good understanding of how this document came about and why it's so important. So, organizations like Youth for Human Rights, United for Human Rights, I've worked with a group called Global Education Motivators out of Philly, and I still work with them. Youth for Human Rights, they had introduced me to a teacher in the Philippines, and we became good friends, and we did projects together. So I think it's really important to find those organizations that are having an impact, a positive impact on the world. And because there's lots of groups out there, but if you have a certain amount of time and money to invest, you want to do it with the people who are having the most impact and positive change.
That's amazing. It is so, so true. Okay, so now let me see, because God, you have such an interesting trajectory in life. So you told me once, right? I don't know if it's okay to say it to the audience, but there was a point where you have everything, and you look at your life and you thought something is missing. I just don't feel fulfilled. I have the money, I have the perfect marriage, I have the perfect everything, right? And then you just kind of like took a deeper look about your life and decided to make a change. What happened? And then you also told me you went, I don't know if I'm correct, you went to India, or you went to, a spiritual place. I forgot the place, but I would like you, if you would like to share that, because it's never late to make a change and create the life you want to have. And I think it's not only about the material things, about having the big mansion, the boats, it's nothing wrong with having money. All the contrary, it gives you energy to help more. But I think at the end of the day, what makes a difference is just having the power to influence the life of others to create it for the better. So would you like to share that part of your life and that adventure?
Sure. I think I was around 34, and I know, for people, lots of things. Sometimes there's a tragedy that happens in life, and it makes them look and make a change. For me, it was a little bit different. I looked at my life all of a sudden. I was like, oh my gosh, I have the American dream. I had it all, but something was missing. Something just wasn't right, and it was that idea of already accomplished it at the age of 34. I was like, is my life over? Is this it? And so that's really what made me start looking deeper into, there has to be more to life. And it was shortly after that, I believe I finished my MBA, and then I started on this master's in transpersonal studies. And I did do a trip. I actually did a trip to Israel, and it was that search of something more, that spiritual aspect of life.
Thank you so much. This is really so helpful. I just wanted you guys to hear from different viewpoints, It's so enriching to listen to people who have just, amazing life, and it just takes a viewpoint to create them that way. It can be you who are listening to create that kind of life, and even better. It takes a decision. That is basically it. I am so pleased and so excited to have my friend talking in this podcast. Is there anything you would like to add before we end it?
Sure, you can take a look at my website.
In fact, sorry to interrupt you. I forgot one last question, which is very important here, because I want you guys to see and have an availability of what she was talking about, the videos, and also about her career, and also you getting a little bit maybe of excitement on these organizations, on how, if you are interested in human rights, how can you be part of the movement that she has created, which is the Firestone movement. So let me just... Okay, where can our listeners find you online?
Well, you can check out my website. It is thefirestone.org. It's just like it's spelled, thefirestone.org, O-R-G. And I had to put the in front of it because Firestone's kind of a popular company, and
that's right.
so we found another website that worked out. And yes, it has the videos that I mentioned, the Youth for Human Rights videos, the story of human rights. There's podcasts, including the one with Ella Torrey, and a lot of other great guests, and some blogs that you're welcome to read that might, have you look at things with a different viewpoint. But yeah, definitely check it out, and all the best to all the listeners.
Thank you so much. It has been such a pleasure and an honor, really. Thank you guys for listening, and I'll see you tomorrow in our next episode.
Thank you, Marina.
Thank you, Ellen.